Hey guys, welcome back to the Podcast. If you don't know who we are, we're a platform for young people to express their views on current issues. If you'd have any opinions that you would like to share, please follow us on Instagram at Podcast to get in touch with us. Also make sure to go ahead and subscribe and review us on iTunes as well. That'll be lovely. In today's episode, we're joined by me and Finley. Well, I'm not joined by myself, but and of course Katie and Isla. You would have just heard Isla a couple minutes ago, or on the Trump episode, which will also be coming out today. So check that out as well on our Spotify and iTunes page. And we will be basically today talking about the MeToo episode that we did. It's a little bonus, so it won't be part of the series. I don't really know if it's a series we've got going on here, but like the episode numbers, it won't have an episode number next to it. It's a bonus. It's basically the MeToo episode. We wanted to touch on it a little bit, the one that we did previously, because we just felt like we could have done it a lot better in many ways, and I know that Katie and Isla will definitely tell us why, and hopefully not rinse us too hard. But yeah, let's just get into it. So when you guys listen to the episode, what do you guys think when you listen to it? Like, because we touched on a lot of things, but it was obviously from a male's perspective on, well, what really is like a female issue. And I think we were a bit naive as well to do that, if I'm totally honest, so...
I agree. I think a lot of your points are true and about false allegations and people... You know, I think it's the Me Too movement as a whole has been blown up completely. And I think originally it was there to just make people aware of, like, what women deal with on a daily basis of, like... And I think when people think of the Me Too movement, they think of just, like, oh, it's rape claims. But actually it's just making everyone aware of sexual harassment and, like, what actually happens and what people go through daily. Rather than, like, a... Closer? Yeah, Isla.
I think it was important to have a female perspective on it as well, is summarising what you said.
So Katie touched on like sexual assault is going on right now. Do you think there is like a problem right now with sexual assault? Well, even in comparison to before, has it risen, or do you think there just has always been a problem with sexual assault?
I think just generally how men and female are sort of composed. I think there's always been a problem for hundreds of years with it, but I think it's important to make men more aware of it. I think the Me Too movement has done that, but I also think it's made people sort of mock it in a sense because it's kind of been blown out of proportion.
Yeah, but I think it was positive in the sense that after men have seen, kind of in wake of what's happened, have seen like the consequences of actions which previously hasn't been seen on such a scale, like there is actually consequences to what happens. You will not just get away with it. That I think it has had a positive impact on the fact that now people will just not, I don't want to say risk it, but will not do it because people will talk.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the idea, like the Me Too movement idea, is obviously a very good thing, like to promote women especially to come out if they feel as if they've been like raped or sexually assaulted. I think, the problem where I see is like when with like false allegation cases, I think that's where a lot of people who are against the movement or like disagree with it, they use these cases as substance for their arguments, which is kind of unfair because it's such like a big movement, and like you're always gonna have like anomalies which don't really represent the whole movement in general.
I think the false allegations have like undermined the ones that actually count.
Yeah.
And I think even if it's not a rape case, like people on public transport will get like sexually harassed or even just like made uncomfortable. And I think people are not actually aware of that because they made it so big and so like, oh, it's all false allegations. It's all, you know, everything's horrific, or people are using it as cover, or people are trying to get other people in prison or so on. I think it's actually kind of made it a bit like of a laughing matter rather than...
Just delegitimize like the whole thing, really.
Yeah. There is a very fine line between feeling uncomfortable and being sexually harassed, though.
Yeah, would you say that's subjective, like from like woman to woman? Like, where is the line?
I think different women, I think if someone got like their thigh touched on a bus or something, one woman would find it like really uncomfortable.
It's weird because no one would touch a man's thigh on a bus.
I know, it's
but
just
it
like
does
weird
happen.
that someone would do that. Like I just
like
can't imagine
hands
that
down
happening.
happens like all the time, or like on public transport.
Yeah, where
like,
I work as a waitress, people like will touch
touch your
my bum
bum
all
and
the
stuff.
time.
Yeah.
God, didn't know that. All right, yeah, that's mad.
Yeah, this is
I
why
actually
we're
didn't.
doing
Yeah,
it.
that's why this is so important.
I wouldn't say wolf whistling is like sexual harassment, but because I mean it makes you feel uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say it's sexual harassment. But some women might find it like
I wouldn't. I think that wolf whistling's such an interesting one because it's really interesting to see what people have to say about it, because some women would be flattered, and that is the intention, I think.
I also think it's from who it comes from.
Weird and sometimes can be make you a bit uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Do you not think like the subjective nature of like all these things makes it just like, because like, I think you could argue that men here, although I don't know if this is justified or whatever, if this is right, like it's hard because of the subjective nature how far that they can go, what they should do.
But the fact that you didn't know that like people would get their thigh touched or their bum touched, like that's just like how important it is to let people know.
Yeah, like I was working on Friday, and so you've got people asking when you get off work, like kind of being too touchy, too kind of hands on. But I wouldn't count that personally as sexual harassment, whereas some people might.
I also think that the MeToo movement as a whole was there to make people more aware of the things that go on, rather than like trying to get people out for sort of rape claims.
Yeah, so do you think like awareness is enough, or like do you think there actually should be sort of with like these sort of things that like make you feel uncomfortable, like should that be like, should people get prosecuted for that?
I think you do need some. I think prosecuted is a strong word. You do need some deterrent for it though, or else why wouldn't people just do it?
Yeah,
I'd probably agree, to be honest, because
if you can find out places where it happens a lot, say public transport, if there's cameras, I think someone should be fined for like if it's blatantly obvious and you have video footage of someone making someone else uncomfortable and it's plain to see, I don't see why not.
But where do you draw the line?
That's
For
true.
example, like someone might seem as being like flirtatious, and then like the girl might have like quite enjoyed it at the time, but then like a few days later she could come out and be like, this made me feel uncomfortable. So like what like, but then the guy, I think that's when it like it's quite confusing for the guy, because at the time it seemed fine and it all seemed good, but then later she comes out and is like, I was feeling uncomfortable. So like I think that's where it's such like a grey area at the moment.
I think it will always be a grey area. I think it really depends on the woman. It depends on the circumstance. It really depends on a load of different factors. But I definitely think that more education should be introduced, just telling people exactly what goes on.
Yeah,
I think everyone's obviously seen the consent is a cup of tea video, and everyone has shown that at school and made that stress to all you guys at SMC, which
it's a good video though.
all boys school. But I don't know, because obviously I don't attend that school, I don't know how much they focus on they do focus on the big problems like rape and the huge cases, but I don't know how much they focus in sex education in school about the little things like
there's not like, I think there's probably not much, well this is just from personal experience, but like there's not much about like how you should treat people like day to day. I think it's more like just like the idea of like with respect, but like again that's going to be really subjective as to like whether people are like find certain things uncomfortable and stuff. So
I think you'd want to hope that all men are brought up with good values, but I think in truth there isn't. So
I also think it should be introduced earlier, because I think you guys, or 5th year, age of 16, you've already experienced a lot in that sort of aspect. I think it should be introduced maybe early as S2.
Yeah, it's hard to change your mind when your opinion's already fully formed. Like.
And if you start it early, then that makes a good base for them to develop as humans.
Yeah.
And have a good sort of moral base to work on, rather than them experiencing it and then being told later that that's actually what goes on and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So do you think like the Me Too movement has been effective as this sort of educationary means of like changing attitudes towards women?
I don't think it has at all. I think it's been made as sort of a bit of a laughing stock. I think it's rape cases, people are aware of it, and I think it's good at the like when it was first introduced. I think it was amazing that so many people reached out and came, said that they had experienced it. But then as soon as you have that one group of people that wants to make, be that devil's advocate sort of side, I think it's just been completely blown out of proportion.
But I think in hindsight that as long as it's had an effect on one kind of Larry boss that's been saying kind of slightly dodgy comments to his female employees, or maybe giving them too gentle a brush on the arm or something like that, as long as it's had an effect on at least one person and made them more aware, and
Yeah.
made them more careful or polite to their female employers, I think that you can say it's had a positive effect.
Yeah.
I'd say like it's opened a conversation, and like I personally say that my attitude has changed. Like even like if the Me Too movement hadn't come about, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I wouldn't be knowing that women go through all this like shit every day about like getting like just inappropriate treatment. Like, so I think it's opened a conversation which has thus allowed sort of attitudes towards women to change. So I think it might have been, I personally think it's quite effective. I don't think the false accusations are like are enough of a mitigating factor to...
Yeah.
I think what's also quite interesting is that, so as I said at my work, some people can sometimes get quite handsy, but that does go both ways. So sometimes you do get some older females getting quite handsy with the younger male employees.
I was going to say, we can't forget the fact that boys, you know, it's not their fault they're not educated on this sort of thing. And if it does happen and they get prosecuted for it, that could be, you know, if it goes on their like records, you know, having something like that on your record completely sort of changes your whole life.
100%.
And I think it's important that, one, we do educate them so they don't make that mistake, but also I think we should be slightly lenient if it is something like public transport. So I'm just going to use that as an example. If it is something like that and it doesn't look specifically, you know, as Finney said, you know, it could have been flirtatious behaviour from the female, it could have been led on. I think we should be completely careful with how much we actually prosecute people, because it could really affect their lives. And especially if they're of a young age, you know, and they don't know.
Yeah. I think also, like, if a girl is chatting with a boy and having a laugh and maybe, you know, giving them some physical contact in the arm or in the leg or whatever, it's viewed in such a different light than when boys do it to girls. Do you know what I mean by that? Because
I mean, there's of course reasons for that.
Yeah.
But I agree.
To be honest, I'd agree. The only thing where I'd disagree is whether or not the Me Too movement has changed like attitudes. But I think that's been like a really good conversation. I think a lot of people listening to this will learn a lot, especially a lot of like the male listeners. So like I think that's a success pretty much. So I think we'll just end on the final question. Is the Me Too movement justified, harmful, damaging?
I think overall it had a positive impact. I think it did it did serve its purpose in the fact that it made people aware of what women go through on a day-to-day basis. And as I said before, as long as it's had an impact on just one male who originally might have tried these things with women, then it's had a positive impact.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, the fact that it became so popular in the first place shows that so many people agreed with it. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely had a positive impact. And like with anything that's like so big, it's gonna have you know, like minorities in it which can like lower its credibility. But overall, I think it's been positive.
All right, that's been really good. Thanks very much for coming along, guys. We're happy to get you on again. Thanks for listening, everybody. There'll be another episode coming out next week. Stay tuned for that. I think it'll be on Counter Punishment, so enjoy that. Thanks very much, and we'll see you later.